My name is Alan Kett, and I'm the publisher of Stress Magazine, a hip-hop magazine out of New York City.
And you used to be a bomber yourself?
Yeah, I used to paint. I used to be a writer, or I still am a writer, from New York, originally from Brooklyn, and I've been writing since the late 80s.
Like, what do you think started the whole graffiti movement, particularly in New York, and when?
From my knowledge and speaking to the older writers, it started in the late 60s. It started, I think, out of just a lack of, things to do in the city. It was a time in New York City's history where there wasn't a lot of programs for youth. There was a lot of poverty here. There was, a lot of cutbacks, not a lot of funding for, poor people, not a lot of assistance. And young people out of, finding something to do and thinking about having a good time and getting noticed, turned to the walls and started scribbling their names. The earliest names that I've heard of are names like Julio 204, Tacky 183, Eva 62, Barbara 62, names like that. And people started throwing up their names with their street names, with their street numbers rather, and really started getting around the city. So if you were on 190th Street and you saw Coco 144 tag, that Coco from 144th Street had just come to your block. And names started to spread. More and more kids, as they picked up on it and noticed that these kids were everywhere, starting to want to get down too and really start to get some fame. So it started off real small, but it quickly spread. I know from 1970, when a lot of people say they started, till 1972, in those two short years, trains became completely bombed, where trains weren't bombed before. So it really picked up really quickly in the city. And kids from all over the city, all the boroughs, really wanted to get down with the action and see their names up and really become famous.
At that time, we were starting to ride the subway alone, going to our grandparents' house, and we started to see the tags on the train. It was like people like Is the Wiz and Sly 108 and Puma 107 and all those kind of cats. And they had really great calligraphy like styles, and I was like, oh shit, how did they do that? What kind of marker is that? My brother come home with that marker, he was like, this is it. I was like, it's on, and then we met kids in the school who were tagging up, and slowly but surely, we started to seep into that whole scene and like go to the writer's bench on 149th Street Grand Concourse. Start meeting more writers, older writers, and started to see like the whole world like sort of open up. Start seeing trains. I was like, oh shit, how did I do that? We go to the yards. Went to the first time I went to the yard was in the daytime. We were like Petro, in the 6 yard with this kid Rio, my little friend D, little DEA, and we were just in there running around, and it was like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and it was just like spooky, but it was really intriguing. It was like, wow, this is where all these cats go, and they do all their dirt, and in the afternoon they should just run some rush hour. That was a high.
I think one of the chief things that happened was the fact that the city themselves weren't really funding a lot of the things that kept people, kept young kids entertained, like basketball programs, like art programs, like after-school programs, really, or summer programs. So once the city really started to cut back on those programs, kids started to look at, other things to do, You look at New York City, there's a lot of people here. There's a lot of young kids, and there's just so much they could do on their block, so they really try to go out and find creative things to do. And once they exhausted all those means, graffiti was a natural thing to turn to. And beyond that, when writing was actually in full effect and really popular here in New York, it was like something that you had to do if you were a young man, if you were a boy in New York City. It was a natural thing to do. You became a writer. You danced. You used to break. You got into that, just like you used to play basketball in the park. Those are natural things growing up in New York that you had to do, or that most people, did. And let's say walking down the street in 1985, let's say walking down Broadway, or walking down Knickerbocker Avenue or Myrtle Avenue in Brooklyn, any kid that you stopped had a tag, even if they never really threw it up. Everybody had a tag. So it's just like a growing up thing.
How did trains come into play? Why subways? Why a moving target?
Trains came into play for a lot of reasons. The biggest reason was that they moved from one end of the city to the next end of the city. So when kids, finished tagging up the streets, and got the names up there, they wanted a way for their name to get from the top of the Bronx to the bottom of Brooklyn. And if they threw one name up on a train, that would get there, and that would get a lot of play. A lot of oddballs would see your name on that one train that one day. So it was a normal, aggressive thing to do to get fame. And young kids are very aggressive, and it happened. And not only did it happen with the first kid that started doing it, but then that kid had to get his name up on every single train and every single car, You know, and then after that, when that was done, then it had to be on every single train line in his borough, and then it had to be on every single train line in the whole entire city. So it was, you know, bigger and bigger and bigger, and you had to get bigger and better. And a lot of kids did that, you know, and that was called going all city. You know, and you could be a king of one line if you got your name up so much that could be even called your line, or you could be a king of many lines. And, you know, to date, there's a lot of kings, you know, in New York City's graffiti history.
What's up? Can we holler at Futura for a second?
Sure, 1 minute, come in. His office is right over there.
Futura.
Hey
What's
there.
up, my man?
Hey, what's up,
How you
Fred?
doing?
Okay, fine.
Can we holler at you for a second?
Absolutely. Come on
We're
in.
just trying to check out your space.
Okay.
You got a whole camouflage thing going on here.
Camouflage set.
Yeah, camouflage set. We talked to Kel first a few minutes ago,
Okay.
and we were getting the whole lowdown on how he got started. When did you start? When did you start writing?
Wow, that's some time ago. 1970, actually, when I was in high school. That's when I first went to the movement, if you know, saw the writing on the wall, as it were. And, you know, I was kind of late, I think, to get into it. You know, I actually knew the difference, you know, between right and wrong, but I saw it as a means of self-expression, you know, and that was my, that was the reason why I think I became part of it. I wanted to, I had something to say. It was an identity crisis. And,
Let's discuss some of the terminology. What's a throw-up?
A throw-up in writing is a bubble letter. What it is, it's a representation of your name or a painting of your name that's done very quickly. And it's called throw-up because you throw it up on the wall really fast. So usually it's just two colors or maybe just one color. And it's a bubble style, soft letters. And like I said, they're done really fast and you see them all over the city. Those are the things.
Why do they want to do them fast?
Because you don't have a lot of time before the cops come or before somebody spots you. You know, throw-ups are really a good thing to do if you want to do a lot. If you want to really get your name up a lot and big, you do quick throw-ups, you can cover the city really quick, you know, and you leave your mark.
And that's different from a tag?
Yeah, what a tag is basically a writer's signature. It's what their name is in the simplest form. Like, you know, like you sign a check, it's a signature, and it's their representation in that form. And that's, you know, one color. It's done in spray paint or a marker. And that's, signatures or tags is what you see the most in any city that has graffiti. Because that's the easiest thing to do. That's the first thing or the easiest thing to learn. You don't even have to really learn how to do it, and you can still have a tag or a signature and go out bombing.
That was like my thing. Elevated train station. Yards were like, we hit them. But the elevated train stations, that's the real excitement. That's where everything, like, talk about adrenaline high. I was notorious for hitting all the layups up in the Bronx doing that. We'd climb up and down the elevated poles. When the cops would come, we'd jump down, slide like Batman and Robin, sliding down the pole, and we'd down the street and just jet into the neighborhoods. You know, yards were like, we have to be more cautious because you're on the ground level. You have the same advantages a cop has over you. You know, it's just a little bit uneasy that way. You know what I'm saying? They have a real, like, they can grab you. When you're on the elevated train station, they're more afraid of walking down that track. And I'm running down that track. They're walking down that track. I'll slip in between the tracks, slide down the pole. They won't do that. They'll walk back to the train station, go downstairs, and then get in their car and start searching the neighborhood.
yeah, I was part of Ex-Vandals, Ted Incorporated, Soul Artists, 3 Yard Boys, but you know, crews I think happened a bit later, and they were always symbolic of, you know, people who hung out together. But I was more of a loner as far as writing was concerned, and I liked to do it alone. Mm-hmm. Therefore, I wasn't surrounded by a lot of other guys, and I did it pretty much, you know, anonymously. That's what I was attracted by, the anonymity of just doing it and getting people's reactions to your work, and then they don't realize that you're the guy doing it.